Hi, welcome to Boardroom Savages, where we highlight the trials and triumphs of business leaders, entrepreneurs, and everyday people. Okay, guys, let's get into it. I know this is super cliche.
Uh-huh.
Tell me a little bit about yourself and what you got going on. Let's at
Uh,
least do that part.
well, I'll tell you, like my answers are always a little bit unorthodox. Um, and it took me a while just to be okay with it because, we live in a society that's we organize ourselves through titles and, that's how we get to, organize people in our lives. But the first thing, I'm just a servant, man. I was born a servant. I've always been a servant as young as I can remember. So however I can show up and serve and add nutrients to not only my life but the lives of other people around me, I feel good. So however I express that in my life has been through sports, through boxing, it's been through acting, through comedy, stand-up comedy, hosting, through building. I have a renovation company, whether it be through personal development healing. That's something I'm very passionate about, is assisting people in their own personal
Yeah, that's
development
what
and
we're going
healing.
to get into it about that personal development and healing.
Yeah, so I also do a lot of community work. I work with reachback.org, and we dig a lot into giving the kids the tools and the things that
Let's
they
talk
need
about
moving
Reach
forward.
Back. So, what's I know that that's a passion project of yours. Give a little bit more information on Reach Back.
All right, so Reachback is founded by this phenomenal sister named Daphne Simmons here out of Atlanta, and she's come up with a great concept. It's a bit robust, but it's needed. It's geared towards addressing a lot of the issues that surround poverty. You know what I mean? So it's dealing with the education aspect of it. It's also dealing with the entrepreneurial aspect of it. It's dealing with, personal development aspect of our community. It's dealing with the trades, just people, kids coming out of school and just saying, hey, listen, like, pick you up a trade, if you don't want to go.
Not everybody goes to college. That's
Right.
Boardroom Savages right there.
Not everybody goes. So it's just expanding options and then creating an organized structure for communities to work together. It's about partnership. Really, overall, it's about partnership. But it took me a couple months just to kind of like understand it all. And I get why there's a lot, because it's a big machine that's meant for a big mission, so to speak. So Reach Back, it's there for the community. It's there to help build entrepreneurs, help entrepreneurs succeed, expand, and scale. But it also is there to help youth and get them primed and ready for adulthood.
Right.
It's also there for communities and parents to help them kind of tap in and expand their awareness and understand how to deal with each other on multiple levels. So there's a lot integrated in it, and there's a lot of partners that are involved in it that specialize in different places. Mine is obviously personal development, conflict resolution, adolescent development, things of that nature, networking, anything that has to do with how people interact with each other. That's where I play.
So, the topics, we've been talking offline, we're going to get into it. Let's start with toxic parents.
Okay.
What are the signs of a toxic parent? So, because young people need to know, because it's normalized. Like, you become a product of your environment, because you grew up and your grandma did this.
Yeah.
Your mama did this.
Right.
Your daddy did this. Your granddaddy did this. And
Right.
that may not be healthy things that they are doing, healthy habits, healthy traits.
Right.
So if you need to stop and assess those that are around you, what are the traits? What are the habits? What is the awakening that you can give to someone to say, hey, you are probably in a toxic environment. And then we can go from there.
Okay, so it's not that simple, and the reason why is because toxicity is different for different people.
Okay.
And based off your own personal paradigm. Who you are as a person, your personality, and that has different markers. Like there's things that we come into innately just through birth. Personality traits that just handed down through our DNA.
Okay, let me be more clear. The narcissist.
Okay.
Let's start because it's huge. Narcissism, gaslighting.
They're common words.
They're common. They're getting used in out of context, but no, these are real things that are happening. So yes.
And this is why I agree with you so much. And this is why, because I've had this for almost 2 years, but when I talk about narcissism, it is a common thing that people just, especially over social media, people, they hear that it's become a buzzword.
Right.
It's become a buzzword, but this is actually, it's classified as a disorder in the DSM-5. So for it to be classified as a disorder, there are protocols, you know what I mean,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to diagnose somebody as a narcissist. And what's happening is like we hear it, we've watched a couple YouTubes and things like
Everybody's
that.
an expert.
And everybody's like, oh, you're a narcissist, you know, you're a narcissist. So it's like, it's really about breaking down what it is that actually somebody would possibly say, a professional possibly say is somebody's a narcissist. But also, I go into looking at how these behaviors or behavior patterns that a narcissist may have, how they can slightly reflect non-narcissistic behavior, but it's common to the individual based off of their paradigm, based off of defense mechanisms, based off of their life experience.
Right.
So I'll get into like one or two of them just so that way you can kind of understand where I'm going. So like a narcissist would have like, you know, this big self-image. You know, I like to call them self-hype artists. You know, they think of themselves very big. They think a lot of themselves. You know, they think they're everything. You know, self-importance. They exaggerate everything that they do. You know what I mean? But that could come off at like, you know, I say
Confidence.
self-confidence without
Yeah.
comparison. You know what I mean? And that's important. So
Ooh, self-confidence.
without
comparison.
Now that could be
Wow.
tricky because comparison is not something that you actually want to make part of your Bible. Like you don't want to always compare yourself to others, but there is comparison in a healthy way. We see it in sports. You know what I mean? You know, I'm big into sports. You know, I boxed for a good part of my life. My ability to find out how good of a boxer I am is being able to be in the ring
competition.
with other boxers. But if I've never produced anything that's actually shown me that I've created a high level of output, and it hasn't been matched up against anybody else who has done the same, then I could sit back and say, you know what, that could possibly be a narcissistic trait. You know what I mean? But we also have things where you just have self-confidence, where it's like, you know, I'm going to say I'm going to be a thing before I'm a thing, and we
Right.
do that in our vision boards.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like it's really
It's
understanding.
a very thin line.
And that's why I said everybody likes to use narcissism as a word without actually knowing how to get down and really figure out the details in the fabric.
So there are different types of narcissism. Like you have covert narcissism, and you have people that just have narcissistic tendencies.
And most of us do.
Right. You
And
know
most
what I
of it- and
mean?
that's what
Like,
I'm
so
saying
you have
is like-
narcissistic tendencies, and you got covert narcissists, and
Right.
you got outright. You need a pill. You are a straight narcissist.
Right. So how we separate that amongst people is like it's not so much as, oh, I'm having a bad experience with you or I'm having conflict with you and our paradigms are different and our perspectives are different, and because of that I might not be in a mature space to be able to understand that it's just a difference, and so I want to label it because really there's something I want from you, but I can't get it from you because it's not your natural behavior, and now I'm throwing a temper tantrum because of it, so I like to call you names.
Oh, well, let's go into gaslighting. Because this stuff builds upon each other. Because here's the thing, you know, with Boardroom Savages, the goal is to highlight the trials and triumphs of business leaders, entrepreneurs, and everyday people. But also, we talk about real estate, we talk about business, we talk about mindset, and I stress that. This got to be right.
Yes.
You know, everyone wants the paper. Everyone wants to get paid. But if your mind is not right to receive it and you're not understanding what's going on, it can either delay your manifestation of money.
Yes.
Right? It can, you know, have that manifestation work against you. Like, for example, you'll have someone that becomes filthy rich and then they kill themselves.
Right.
Because their mind and their spirit isn't right.
Right.
And now money just magnifies.
That's exterior versus interior.
Right.
Yes.
Money, let me tell you something. Money is energy, and it's a tool. However, what people do not understand is money only magnifies who you are. I'll give you an example. If you're an asshole and you got $10 million, you're a $10 million
asshole. Right.
If you're a giver and you got $10 million, you're probably a philanthropist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're going to give. But what if that giver is an empath and they got a pool of narcissistic, you know, type A, covert, narcissistic tendencies. So now that imp is being drained and they don't feel loved. Now they 10 million is gone. Now they want to jump off a bridge.
Right. Really what you're describing is survival of the fittest. You know, you're dealing with the world that, you know, nature expresses itself in so many different ways, and it's not always feels good. I mean, you go out in nature, you get poison ivy.
Yeah.
But if you don't understand that there's a plantain plant somewhere around the way that you can chew on and rub it on it and it'll take away the itch. If you don't understand that that's available to you, then you'll feel like life is happening to you, not through you. You know, so whenever we're experiencing people that we are in conflict with or doesn't quite resonate with us, it's our job to figure out why we are still connected to it. Like, what is it about that person that we feel that we cannot manifest on our own without that type of experience or behavior being attached to us, because they're going through their own life experience. Whatever it is that another person is doing, they're having a whole internal universal experience, and they're coming up with their own concepts that ain't got nothing to do with you.
They are the star of their show, and you're a cameo, you're
right,
an actor,
and it's the same thing vice versa.
And it's vice versa.
Right, it's just when I view you in my paradigm, I might have your character spine played out as something more relaxed and more soft, and, you know, something that's more happy. But then based off of what's going on in your mind, and you're looking at my attributes, you can have my character spine in your head as somebody who's just like a dumb athlete, or, you know, put me in a box. Until we actually get to know each other and we open up to each other authentically, and we allow each other to learn about one another, then that's where the character spine that you play in your head versus the actual person that you're speaking to, where they get to actually merge and become the same person. But when we first meet each other, there's always two yous.
Yeah, that representative, that customer service representative, and then the man behind the curtain.
And then, well, actually, there's more to yous. There's the customer service, the person that you might present based off of any type of guilt, shame, and fear that you have. So you might throttle who you are because, hey, I don't know if he can handle it. You know what I mean? Then you have my idea of you. You know what I'm saying? Which that's a whole...
We gonna book a whole nother episode. There's a lot of women out here falling in love with the idea of a man.
But we all do it no matter what. So then we have the idea of you.
Me too, yeah.
Yes. And then you have the real you. So then there's three. And they're all at play at the same time. This is your multiverse.
I would like to give a special thanks to today's guests and sponsors. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Stay tuned for the next episode.
Through the universe, the universe. Fell in love with the universe. Tapped in with the universe. Do it with myself first.
Yeah, because...
So you got the multi-universe, and then it's like, now you ever seen, like, I Love It on YouTube? Those guys that they play 5 different characters, but it's one actor.
And one actor, yeah.
It's one dude where, oh my goodness, I gotta look up his name. He is hilarious. He does all of the women in his family. But he plays like when Big Mama gives you some money. And then he gives it from the child's perspective. So he plays the child. Then he plays the mother. And then he plays the grandmother.
There's quite a few comedians out there that did it.
It is hilarious, but really, that's really what's happening.
That's how Tyler Perry came out with Medea. That was his auntie.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you're right. And what that shows is that there are certain spaces that stimulate a certain aspect of you, and other spaces don't. And it could be through the safety. It could be personality differences. You know, there are spaces where I go into where, you know, I feel really comfortable being in an intellectual space.
Right.
And there's other spaces I go into I feel really comfortable being in an athletic competitive space. I know which space I get to be full in that part of me, because there's so many different aspects of me.
Right.
You know, and as you grow...
I know, like, I feel you. I'll be in my Charlie Murphy space.
Yeah.
You know.
And when you get wise, you figure out what space is able to harness or be able to connect with. You're able to connect with that space and be full and be authentic and not have to hold back or throttle without somebody imposing ideas or projecting themselves on you. And we get smart over time. We're human beings. We evolve. We're like, okay, well, here I can do this, but over here I can't. There's a lot of judgment over there. I ain't gonna mess with that over there. And now what happens is, from an observational standpoint, you know, people can look at you, and instead of looking at it from that space, they're like, oh, they fake. Oh, they not the same person. Well, if you look at the details in the fabric, they might not be safe being that person in that environment.
Product of your environment.
Yeah, I mean, true, but we all do that to an extent in our life. We, even with our kids, there's certain conversations we'll have around our kids because we know we'll have to put it in context. You know what I mean?
No, that's
and then other conversations we'll have with our kids because we know that they can handle it. So we just kind of figured out a lot of what we're experiencing as human beings are each other figuring out our own individual lives around each other. And then we're getting consequence of us thinking that everybody shares the same universal reality. And we just don't. Mm-hmm. We just don't. What's stressful for you may not be stressful for me. So if you're trying to convince me to be stressed out, I'm going to ask you why.
Right. And you're going to be like, you're being insensitive. And it's like, nah, that's not
that ain't my thing.
That ain't my thing. My bag is like, I'm super chill. So
like,
people be like, you're not responding. Because I'm like, yeah, that's not my trigger. Like, my trigger and my boundaries that I have grown to understand that people just be being people, and people, again, the 4 agreements.
Oh, okay? Yeah, 4 agreements. Be impeccable with your words. Do the best you can. Mm-hmm. What's the what's it?
Always do your best.
Always do your best. Be impeccable with your words. What's the other 2?
Look them up.
Oh, because I say them all the time.
I say it. I know. I'm getting brain
That's Miguel
fog.
Ruiz.
Yeah. And
it'll come
Mercury,
up later.
It's Mercury retrograde, guys. Don't be judging us. I had a hard day today. Mm-hmm. But the point of the 4 agreements is that book helped me understand that everybody's a mirror. Mm-hmm. So that thing you don't like about that girl, why you don't like that about her? That trait might be in your behind. And then you got to address that. But folks don't be wanting to take their own mask off and look at their own self in the mirror and see how they contribute to their own BS.
Right.
So they rather keep that mask on, and when it crack, I put a little makeup in and a little putty over here, a little tape, and then put some makeup on there. And then, because for them, it's safe for them not to be their authentic self because they're not comfortable in their own skin. Again, I want to go back to gaslighting because the reason being is because gaslighting contributes to that mask. Yes.
So, same thing. So, gaslighting. So, one of the things that we can look at in terms of gaslighting is we'll say one of the biggest things is like people say, oh, you're not recognizing the other person's feelings, how they're feeling about a thing. It's like, oh, so you might be gaslighting, but we've got other things that contribute to that, and real things like, let's say, like postpartum or bipolar. Mm. There's real mental health issues where people, the way they see life, that's real for them. You know what I'm saying? Especially women, man. Like, I don't think there's a lot of grace and a lot of space given to the conversation about women and the way you live life, just through hormonal spaces. Mm-hmm. If you have a child. Mm-hmm. Even when you get in them older ages, you go through, when you're going through perimenopause and things of that nature, these, that estrogen, that breakdown of estrogen changes your whole look on life. And so it's not talked about. Grandmamas ain't talking about it. Great grandmamas ain't talking about it. Grandfathers ain't talking about it. Even when we're having children, I remember, even now I'm just watching a lot of young kids have kids, and they're not understanding what their wives or their girlfriends are going through because they don't understand the hormones and how they got to get regulated, how the baby takes and throws their system out of whack. So it takes some time for the body to get back to homeostasis depending on how they treat themselves. So that type of interaction that they get from their wives, the men take it seriously. Mm-hmm. They think that, oh man, she's coming down on me, she's beating me up, I'm not good enough. Not really nobody's had a conversation and say, listen, that's a whole nother thing going on in there.
Right.
And really what she needs is support, but it doesn't mean that you know how to provide support. It's just letting you know that didn't nobody let you know that you're going to put yourself in a situation where you got to be a caregiver and you've never been told how to be a caregiver. So you take everything personal, but it could be considered gaslighting. Mm-hmm. Like having that experience, like, oh, you gaslighting me.
Mm-hmm. No. That's another buzzword.
Yeah,
now they're buzzing.
I would like to give a special thanks to today's guests and sponsors. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Stay tuned for the next episode.
Through the universe, the universe. Fell in love with the universe. Tapped in with the universe. Had to do it with myself first. Had to do it with myself first.
It's funny because like even in our community, it aggressiveness, right, is in irritation. That's our anxiety. Yeah. And I don't, you know what I mean? So you're like, she's an angry black woman. No, she's not. She's just irritated as all hell, but her anxiety is that's what's happening. That's how it's being displayed. And oftentimes you have people that are getting into relationships and then they don't know themselves, and then now you bring a kid into it because you haven't even healed yourself.
Right.
And that goes into generational curses.
Yeah.
Because now you didn't heal your self-sabotage, you didn't heal your triggers, you didn't go back and deal with what happened to you in your childhood, you know.
Well,
and
sometimes it may not even be the healing. Sometimes it's just the evolution. You know, like sometimes we just haven't evolved past a certain time where something happened to us and it wasn't put in context. So we weren't able to evolve beyond it. So now 10 to 15 years later, anything that looks like that, we handle it the same way we handled it when it first happened. Like, for example, we see a lot of adolescent behavior in grown adults. Because whenever they come into conflict, they handle the conflict the exact same way that they did when they were 15 years old. They did it through anger, resentment, yelling. They don't know how to talk it out. They don't know how to sit back and look at the details in it. They don't know how to say, you know what, well, I never thought of it that way.
listen to understand, listen to respond.
When you're 15 years old, you just got here.
Right.
Like you literally just got here. Like I got draws older than that.
Right.
Don't tell nobody. But
Yes,
you know what I mean?
right.
But it's like there, you know, that's very much a new experience being, you know, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And then when you're highly conditioned in those times when you're 10, 11, and 12, especially nowadays where you have connected to social media and you got, like, I call it marketing inebriation, where you got young kids that are inebriated early from marketing and advertisement, from social media and YouTube. You get drunk very fast. So you just start picking up any type of behavior patterns that came download into your brain through whatever you're observing. You have experience and you never evolve from it. Nobody ever puts it in context. Now you're 35 acting the same way. Now when you get into a conflict with your boyfriend and your girlfriend, you're 35 years old, you're still yelling.
Still hollering and screaming.
Still hollering and screaming. You still got confirmation bias. You still got cognitive dissonance. You're still sitting here, you know, feeling like you're in the same situation that you were when you were 15 because the brain doesn't know the difference between what's in the head and what's really happening in real life. Those are two different, they're very much real. The body, the nervous system responds the same because it doesn't know the difference. We can think
triggers
about
is real.
Yeah.
Like, people don't understand, like, triggers will set off
your 15-year-old self.
Right. Like, it's so funny because, like, when I've dealt with anger, I can literally feel the top of my head get hot.
Yes.
And then, you know, hot-headed was a phrase, but it's like, no, I'm sitting right there, and you can
just
literally
feel the heat.
You can see the steam from the top of my.
Start sweating.
I start sweating. You'll see my hair.
That's energy. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. It's energy, and it's like, if you didn't have a healthy way to deal with that.
Yeah, that's that fight or flight.
Right.
Yeah, you're like, I don't know how to get out of this situation, and my body is responding the best way it knows how, which is either get up out of here or fight for my life.
Right.
Rather than sitting back and saying, you know what, I'm not in any real physical danger. What I am, I'm in mental danger. I'm in program danger. I'm inebriated with all these different ideas and beliefs and cultures that I didn't agree with, or I wouldn't say agree with.
It was downloaded
into you, and you haven't quite figured out how to deal with it. So your body's like in this whole like, I need to get out of this. I need to get out, but your brain doesn't know how to yet. And this is where personal development and counseling and coaching comes in with somebody who's actually good.
Right. Right.
With somebody who's actually good.
Don't tell me how to fight and you ain't never been in a fight. Like, you don't know.
Or you don't even know how to deal with your own fight.
Yeah.
That's what separates, for me personally, and this is my personal opinion, this is where, you know, where it separates healers from practitioners. You know, I mean, practitioners, man, you can go to school, you can learn everything you need to learn.
And everything.
Yeah, but when you get that real life experience and you're able to collaborate that information, that intellect, also with that lived experience, and you're able to look at it from many different angles, even ones that you didn't even live, you have the empathy to be able to sit back and say, oh, I can see how a person who has that lived experience and has that paradigm could feel that way. And now I can help you heal from that space.
It's, you know, it's funny that you should even say that, because those are also, you know, characteristics of people who are empathic. Like being able to sit back and be like, okay, this ain't about me. Clearly this person is, you know, something's going on, but sometimes that empath can get abused because you're sitting there, like, you're able to step outside of yourself and understand where that person is coming from, but that person ain't healing, and they taking advantage of the fact that you really can sit there and be like, okay, this is not my fight. Let me let you get this out. Are you good now? You want to come in?
Right.
You good, honey?
But you got to remember, it may not necessarily, It may not necessarily be that the person is taking advantage. It could be that they're doing the best that they can from what they know and their lived experience at that moment. Remember, it's a whole universe. They're looking at the same thing that you're looking at. Like,
But
we're
the
all in this.
information is different.
But the processing is different. The paradigm, how they define meaning to things is different. Everything is different. So on one end, it's like, oh man, you're not really taking me into consideration, you know. But really, what it could be is like, you know what, I have to, as an empath, I also know I need to develop a protector around that aspect of me that doesn't allow the empath to be abused. And it doesn't mean that protector becomes abusive, but that protector just teaches me how to navigate.
Those are boundaries.
Those are boundaries, or those understanding, all right, what kind of strategies do I need to have around this individual personality type? And on top of that, do not self-sacrifice. That protector is also there.
Wait, hold on. Do not self-sacrifice.
Sacrifice. That's nature's number one rule.
Let's please explain do not
Self-sacrifice. So,
because you got self-sabotage.
and then you got self-sacrifice.
What's the difference? So tell what each one is, and then what's the difference?
All right.
We could.
So self-sacrifice is when you look at nature. When you have life is always trying to maintain life until it goes away. But it wants to go away naturally, and sometimes it doesn't. But you have, you know, autonomous systems within ourselves. You know, our lungs do what they do, our heart does what it does on its own, our liver does what it doesn't. We don't have to control it. Why? Because that aspect of our being is tapped into something greater than ourselves, so that way we can maintain life. So our number one goal is do not self-sacrifice. Your job is to live.
Right, don't fall on nobody's sword.
Don't
Basically, is what we're trying to say.
And don't create your own sword and stab yourself. You're like, there is no, like, you're here to live. Now, how you live, now that's your free will. That's something that's not autonomic. That is something of consciousness and subconsciousness. These are things, ideas that you choose to download, and then what you end up doing is you do them so often that it leaks into your subconscious, and then and then your nervous system attached to it.
Then you start practicing it,
right?
And it starts manifesting in your life. So you're like, man, nothing's never working. Things are so crappy, and it's like, no, you got to sit back and what's that internal dialogue that you're having with yourself? And it takes folks a long time to really realize, like, that self-talk is real.
Well, that's because now you're tapping into that self-creator. Now you're getting into a space. That's a whole nother conversation. We're understanding you are the God of, you are made in the image of God, and literally that's it. You are creating your own world. Every moment, how you deal with a situation and how you look at it, you're creating your own world, and your nervous system is responding to it. And then when your nervous system responds to it, now you get these different feelings, and now you're dealing with these feelings, and whether it be anxiety, whether it be hurt, whether it be frustration, whatever it may be, that's a consequence of how you are looking at the experience. Like I say, life happens through you, not to you. It all works out different depending on who the person is and how they define things. This is where you have that self-talk, change in mindset. So now you're looking at things different. You're seeing opportunity to grow rather than you're seeing resistance.
Challenge.
Yeah, you're seeing the challenge. You know what I mean? You go to the gym, and we do it physically. We go to the gym, we put weights on the bar. Why? Because we know it's going to make our muscles grow. We literally put challenge on top of ourselves to grow.
Right.
But in the other aspects of life, we're like, I don't like the challenge.
I don't want the challenge, right?
I don't like
it's not what it looks. It's not what we want it to
be. Now fold that into your relationships. Fold it into the relationship with your mother. Fold it into the relationship with your sister, or to the man that you chose and the woman that you chose. This is your challenge. This is your opportunity to grow. This is your opportunity to overcome conflict. This is your opportunity.
How do you recognize that goes all the way back? Because I know we're going to be wrapping up soon. That goes all the way back to the toxic. Because you're looking at these challenges, but some challenges are not meant to be taken on.
Then you detox. That's what we do with everything else, don't we? We detox.
But how do you know the difference? Like, okay, this is a situation I need to detox from versus this is a situation I need
that's
to
part of the awareness of life. That's the evolutionary process. That's understanding, is like, man, there's more things that I need to know. There's more things, there's more information that I can bring in that help me expand my awareness, so I can look at things from many different angles and be like, oh, okay, this is toxic, but really it may not be toxic. It's just somebody expressing themselves in the way that they are. And I have to sit back and say, this is not the space for me, because it's not a mutual nurturing experience.
Well, guys, there you have it. Lex Kelly. He's coming back, so don't worry. Like, this is just a teaser, because the things that we spoke about today, the challenges and the toxic and the detox, you have this in business. You have this in your job. When you have that boss that's getting on your nerves, you have to recognize, is this a challenge or a toxic environment, and I need to do my resume over and I need to go somewhere? Or if you are in business and you have a toxic client, how do you recognize, okay, it's a challenge. Let me look at this client's perspective and I could improve my business versus I got to fire this client. He or she, this ain't going to work. This ain't what it is. So we're going to bring him back. We're going to have even more discussions because mindset is important. Getting your soul and your spirit right is important because when you're creating your business and you're creating your careers and you're doing these things, you are shaping your world. You are using your God energy, and what you put out is going to be a result of what you get back. So, what's the saying that they say, go within so you never have to go without?
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that. So when you go within so you never have to go without, when you're on your journey to building your career and you're building your wealth and you're building your business, being able to self-regulate, self-check, not take things personal, that's going to take you a long way. So I hope on today's episode of Boardroom Savages, we gave you something to think about. We hope that you were engaged, entertained, encouraged, okay, and more importantly, educated. We'll look forward to seeing you at the next episode. Ciao.
Peace.
I would like to give a special thanks to today's guests and sponsors. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Stay tuned for the next episode.
Through the universe, the universe. Fell in love with the universe.